So you can probably tell from my accent, I'm originally from New Zealand. I'm currently living in Orlando and New York, kind of backwards and forwards. I write the daily Asterisk news, and I'm managing director of VentureVoIP, VentureIP, and Synapse. Kind of similar types of companies. Okay, so the Asterisk Manager is a TCP interface to Asterisk. Basically, it allows you to connect to Asterisk and see what's going on. You can make calls, transfer calls, end calls, pretty much anything that you can do from the dial plan or in any way of dealing with Asterisk you can do through the Asterisk Manager. There's a couple of different ways that you would normally interact with the Asterisk Manager. Okay, yeah. So there's a couple of different ways that you can connect to the Asterisk Manager and get it to do to Asterisk and get it to do things for you. You'd use the dial plan, which is when you make a phone call, it goes through a list of things and does them. You use an AGI, which it goes to a piece of software that you've written in whatever language you want and then control Asterisk. But that only happens within the context of a call or the Asterisk Manager. The Asterisk Manager can do everything that you can do in the dial plan, it can do everything that you can do in an AGI, and it can also do things outside of the context of a call. So that means like you can cause Asterisk to reload, you can send messages to channels, things like that. Okay, so it's a little bit hard to read, but never mind. Connecting with Telnet is probably the first thing that you're going to want to do with Asterisk. So the first thing you're going to want to do is go into Manager.conf. Let me, I'll pull it up on terminal. That's probably a bit easier to read. Oh, that's right, and I've got this weird location, user, etc, asterisk, Manager.conf. I assume that's what it says. Okay, so normally this would sit in etc asterisk, but I configured with a weird prefix last night when I was building Asterisk. So this file here is the config file for the Asterisk Manager. The real biggest thing that you have to remember, and it gets me really, really often, is that by default, when you open this file, it says enabled equals no. So it's not even going to work at all. So the first thing you need to do is go into this file and change it to enabled as yes. This is basically the sample file from when you first install Asterisk. So it's got a whole lot of settings for how you can configure it. Things like timestamping events, displaying connections in the Asterisk console so you can see when you're connected and when you're not connected. Okay, yeah, so this is, I'll explain later on, but I'm using Asterisk 11, right? And the reason for that is basically the Asterisk Manager events have started getting documented in Asterisk 11, so it makes it a little bit easier for me to show you how to use it. The config file is pretty much the same. There's a couple of things like the channel vars are new. The events, the event filters are semi-new. They've been around for a while, but pretty much all of the config file is the same for all the different versions. Everything that we're going to talk about today, at least. Some of these extra actions aren't, but yeah. So all you're going to need to do is you're going to set enabled equals yes. Then you're going to go in and you're going to set up a user and a password. So basically, the way that works, you've got the user, which is inside the brackets, like a context, secret, which is the password that you're going to use, and then you've got these privileges. So these are the types of things that this account's able to do. So, for example, I'm allowed to run system things, I'm allowed to make calls, look at logs, do verbose messages, deal with agents, users, all that kind of stuff. So you've got read and write things. One of the things that changed in later versions of Asterisk, I think it changed around 1.8 or something, was that there was an originate class added of security. So that meant that you could originate calls. So if you wrote something that worked against, say, Asterisk 1.4 and you're making calls and stuff, and then you upgrade to Asterisk 1.8, it would actually stop working unless you add originate into your write class here. So anyway, basically all you got to do is copy and paste that type of thing. That's already inside Manager.conf as an example. I've just changed the username and the password to be a bit more simple. Okay, so where are we? So yeah, so you're going to configure the Asterisk Manager, set it up. Well, what I've actually got here as well, you can have permit and deny rules. So basically I've said deny everybody from connecting to my machine and allow 127.0.0.1. So that's just basically I'm the only person who's allowed to connect. There's another couple of things in the Asterisk Manager. One is that you can do encrypted connections, which you should do if you're doing it over the internet. And the other one is that you can do something called AJAM, which is a Ajax kind of web server based interface to it. So Asterisk will actually run a web server and you can make requests. That still actually needs a little bit of work on the Ajax side in terms of bringing back data that's properly formed in XML. So yeah, don't forget to set enabled yes, and then Telnet to port 5038 on the machine. So what do we got there? Okay, so this is an example of it happening. I may as well I'll just do it so you can see it actually happening. So we've got our user as user and the secret is password. So let's go telnet 127.0.0.1. That messages app is always bouncing around. Anyway, and it's port 5038. So we're connected. This is version 1.3. You see down the bottom of the screen there. So first thing we're going to do is action login. Okay, now there's no backspace because so we're going to have to start that again. Action. Yeah, and I've got a space there. Let's try again. Action login. Oh. Action login. Username is user. Yeah, awesome. Okay, what we'll do is we will go copy, paste. Sweet. Okay, so what we've done here is we've done the action login, and I'm going to explain the difference between actions and events. Everything that you do is going to be, if you're causing Asterisk to do something, you're going to send an action, and if Asterisk wants to tell you something about what's going on, it's going to send an event. So it's like a two-way conversation. So actions are what you send to Asterisk, events are what it sends back to you. So we're going to do a login action. That's the first action you have to do. You can't do any actions until you've done a login. Pass the username and the secret, and then whenever you send an action to Asterisk, you're going to have to press the return key twice, and so that's /r/n twice. So that means you finish typing what you're typing. So you've got a new line at the end of here, a new line at the end of here, new line at the end of here, and then a blank new line here. And it's going to respond and tell you that you've either logged in successfully or you haven't. And then you see right here what we've got is straight away we've got an event back from Asterisk saying that the Asterisk Manager and everything is fully booted. And actually we've got another event now, which is I've got a soft phone which is registered with my Asterisk interface, and it's saying that it's got a peer status information that peer SIP mat is registered, and that's the address it's on and stuff. So you're going to keep getting these events. Now, if you don't want to receive events, you can actually, when you're logging in that same login section, you can say events:"no." So basically what you do there is you go action login, username, user, secret, password, events:"no, and then press return twice, and it will log in and it won't send you events. Okay, so PHP. Again, this is impossible to read. Let's bring it up on a different screen. So action log off. I thought thanks for all the fish disappeared. Anyway, okay, so let's go nano CD. Maybe it's got a capital, no. Where was I? CD user source Asterisk.This. No. What? Ah, because I'm in that. Okay, I'll do a new tab. Okay. You can see my CPU is like totally maxed out. Let's put that over there. Okay, so if we're going to do this in PHP, we want to open PHP, set a timeout for how long it's allowed to take to connect to a socket. This is basically, that's a fsock open. That's a way that you do, it's kind of like a telnet type of thing, but within PHP. You say, where do you want to connect to? So this is the IP address we're going to connect to. the port number, and then we pass it some strings that it can fill up if it has a problem. So basically, if it has an error, it's going to put the error number inside the error no variable. It's going to put the string of the error inside error string. So then we put onto this file socket action login, and then see this /r/n, so that's a new line, username, /r/n, secret, put the thing, and then at the end of the last thing that we do is we send 2 new lines, and then we read the response. That's actually assuming that we didn't get very much of a response, but we'll show you how that works. So let's go PHP connect 1. There's no error checking in this. Okay, so there's no error checking in it, and it only printed out the first line of connecting, and it didn't log off the actual connection, which it probably should have done. So anyway, if you can see that basically that script there will connect to the Asterisk Manager and log in. So let's go back over here. Okay, so now reading responses. That's impossible to see. Okay, so we're going to go back over here. Whoops. Connect 2. Okay, basically the same kind of thing. I'm creating a new variable called line here, which I'm going to fill up with data, and I've got a response which I'm setting to nothing as well. The reason that I'm setting response to nothing is that we're adding response. So what we've got here is we look at make sure that line is not equal to a blank new line, and then we get line. So we're just getting one line after another, and we're cycling around until we get a blank line. And every time that we get a line, we add it to response, and then we echo response. So if we do that, remember before we just got Asterisk Manager 1.3. So if we run this one, PHP connect 2, you see we've got the full response now. So we've got the Asterisk Call Manager 1.3, response success, and authentication accepted. Now this thing here, the Asterisk Manager 1.3, what that's doing is, I think since 1.4 of Asterisk, whenever the Asterisk Manager interface changed significantly, we increase that number so that you know that when you connect to an Asterisk Manager interface, you know what you can expect. For example, in Asterisk 1.2, it had, I think, colons between some parameters, and then in Asterisk 1.4, it changed to exclamation marks and stuff. So depending on what you read from this Asterisk Call Manager version number, you know what to expect. Okay, so let's go to the next one. Of course, we won't be able to read it, but okay. So one of the things that you're going to want to do is probably write a couple of helper functions. So this one here is basically what we just had for getting a response. So it's going to get a response from and go through and look for the end of a new line. And here's another one which is connect, which is doing exactly the same thing as we did before. We're passing in a host username and password, and it's returning a socket. And then we've got this one, which is pass response. So basically what we've got here, really hard to read. What if I change the text to a different color? Let's try changing that to white and that to black. And no shadow. Yeah, which is probably under the inspector and text. No. Okay, let's just oh, God. Okay. So pass response. So you know how we got a response like, for example, the one before was response and it said authentication accepted or authentication not accepted. So what we're going to do here is that we're going to create an exploded response. So basically I'm breaking it apart by a new line so that we've got an array, and each entry in the array is one line of text. Then we go for each, so this is going through each of the lines and it's looking at each line. And then, okay, so the reason for this is just so we don't get an error, basically we're just going to make sure that the length of the thing we're looking for, so what we're looking for is like the word response or some type of event in Asterisk. And if the thing that we're looking for, which is event up there, so we check that the line that we have is either bigger or equal to the word we're looking for, because we don't want to check for this next line here. So basically this next line here, we're looking to check if the substring of the length of the event is equal to the event. So we're saying, okay, look, is the first 10 characters of my string, for example, the word response? And if the word was actually shorter than 10 characters, that wouldn't work. So if it is, then we respond with the rest of the line. It will make a little bit more sense when I show it in action. So let's jump back into that and we'll go to the next one. Okay, so using these functions, if we've got those functions defined further up in our file, then all of a sudden connecting to the manager becomes something even easier. So we do, you can grab these functions off me at the end, they're not very complicated. So then we could do connect. We've got a connect function now, which just takes the username and password and the host. We get response from the socket, and then we pass the response. We're looking for an event called message, and we check if the passed response is authentication accepted, and we print logged in. So that starts becoming a bit of an easier way to do things. So let's, I think, well, we're up to connect 3. Okay, so it's logged in now. Now actually connect 3, what I've just done here in connect 3, let's load it up here. So nano connect 3. So we've got all these functions that I was just talking about, the connect and the pass response, and so that's our thing that said logged in. That's what we just saw in the slide before. And then what we're going to do is we're going to do another action, which is to get the core status. So actually, we're not doing core status because I changed it to reload. So the action that we're doing is a reload, and then the action ID is something. Whenever you send an action to Asterisk, you can also send an action ID with it, which is so that if you're sending actions from all over the place and Asterisk responds about an action, it will just give you back the action ID that you gave it. So if you say your action ID is 123, when it gives you a response to that, it will also include action ID 123, so that you can just keep a track of what kind of things are going on at the same time. Okay, so I'll just show you a little bit more about what actually what the actions are. So in Asterisk, I said that you can control calls, you can see the status of things. Every time you're going to do this, you're going to be sending an action to Asterisk. So one of the ways that you can find out what you can actually do is by doing manager show commands. So if we go into the console and go Asterisk, except that's not the right console, so we'll go on this one. Okay, so manager show commands. So what that's going to do is it's going to print a list of all the commands that you can do. So you can see here, for example, originate is down there, originator call. So if we want to see some more information about that, we can go manager show command originate. This is really, really big. Anyway, so what it does here is it says these are the things that you can pass it. So this is how an action would actually look. So you'd say action originate. If you wanted, you can pass an action ID. It's up to you. You need to pass a channel, so you're going to need to tell it what to originate. So like SIP/my something, and then you can pass a context, an extension, a priority. So for example, if you want to make a call between a particular agent in a call center who's on SIP/123, and you want to send them to the dial plan to the echo test, which is at the context default extension 600 priority 1, then you'd say action originate channel SIP/123 context default extension 600 priority 1, and then that will just send them. That will make a call. The person who's on SIP/123 will end up in that phone call talking to the console, talking to the echo test. The other way that you could actually do that is by saying that you want to send them to an application. So you make a call going to SIP123 and an application of playback and data of echo test or whatever. So one thing that you might want to do with that is you might say want to put someone into a conference room. So by clicking a button on a PHP, on a web page or something, you could say, okay, the person I want to send there is SIP/123, and the application I want to send them to is Meet Me or Conf Bridge, and the data is room 123. As soon as you run that action from a web page or from wherever you want to run it, then it's going to put that person directly into a conference room. So there's a hell of a lot of different actions that you can do. You can do like ATXfer does an attended transfer of a particular channel. Send text allows you to send a text message to a channel. We use that in a phone center. You know, when people go into a phone center and they make calls internationally for a cheap price and stuff. So what we did is we send messages through to the phone, through a SIP phone, with the remaining balance on their account, and the phone will show up the remaining balance on the account as they're making phone calls. Just write a program that's sitting in the background doing a send text, sorry. Okay, so then this is the action that I was showing in the other thing. So basically what we're doing here is we're going to do an action reload and the action ID of something. So when we ran that piece of software before, which was the over here, Connect 3, so let's have a look at it down the bottom here. When we did the action reload, if we have a look over here, so this is Asterisk here, sitting here, this is my normal console, right? SIP, show, peers, etc. You can see that it's just sitting there doing nothing exciting. When we run this Connect 3, what it's actually done is it's connected to Asterisk and it's caused Asterisk to reload itself. So the action that we told it to do then was reload. So it's gone and it's actually reloaded there. And then you can see manager, you can't really, but manager user logged off after it's finished. Okay, so the other one we've got here is manager events. And this is the reason that we're using Asterisk 11. Basically, Matt Jordan has started going through and adding documentation to the manager events. When I've done this speech in the past, I've had to say, okay, go through the source code and have a look for anywhere that there's a manager event given off, and you'll be able to find out what the list of events are. There's a couple of caveats for it. It's only available from Asterisk 11 on. So previous to that, there is no manager show events command. And when you compile Asterisk, you have to use make full. And the reason for this is that it's got to go through all the every single source code file and find instances of the manager event documentation, and then it builds them together into the documentation that you see when you run manager show events. So again, events are things that Asterisk is going to tell you. For example, we saw it before when my SIP peer became logged on, you got an event saying that the peer status had gone to registered for my SIP peer. So let's do that again. We'll go and I'll show you the manager events. So manager show events. And it's not finished yet, so there's more events that need documenting. And if you're using the Asterisk Manager and you know how an event works, by all means jump into the code. There's a wiki page that Matt's created on wiki.asterisk.org. If you just search for manager events, where he explains how the documentation process happens, and it's really nice. Like, an event might have different variables that it gives up. So like, for example, you saw with the peer status event, it said what the channel type was, it said what my peer name was, it gave a various number of lines of text. And sometimes you might get all of them, sometimes you might not get all of them. A linked event might have one channel or something like that. Anyway, so inside the source code, you can actually, in different places, you can document the one part of it here, and one part of it another one, and one part of it another one, and when you compile Asterisk, it will bring all those pieces together into this documentation here. So you can see there's things like Asterisk is shutting down, someone set a variable. This var set one comes up a lot because every time that a variable is set, it shows up in the Asterisk Manager. And this is actually a really cool one. I hadn't even noticed this one before. It's possibly new, I guess. But so when you make a call, for example, it sets a whole lot of dial plan variables that you're able to access, like dial status and all those kinds of things. And now when you're connecting to the Asterisk Manager, you can actually see all these variables being set as things go on. So you can see things like a queue member has gone paused, call's been picked up, queue caller abandoned. So these are things that you'd use in a call center, for example. Channels renamed, a span, or one of your analog circuits has gone down. So again, the same kind of thing goes. So you go manager show events, and if you go manager show event, shut down, it probably doesn't have very much information. Okay, cool. So manager, the shutdown event will tell you what kind of shutdown it is, whether it's cleanly or uncleanly, and whether it's a restart or not. So let's have a look at Connect 4. Oh, I just ran it. No, Connect 4. Okay. So this is all that same stuff we've got before, all those functions that we created earlier on. We're going to connect, check if we logged in. Okay, now there's no error checking in this, and it will also, if Asterisk died or something, it's not going to work. So we've got a while one statement. So what that's going to do, if you run this from the command line, it's just going to continue looping over and print out a line of these, and then it's going to run this get response thing. So it's just going to print out the events as they come through. So let's have a look at what that does. Connect 4. Okay, so the first event that we got was event fully booted, which we saw before. That happened when the Asterisk Manager was fully set up. And let's go across and grab a soft phone, make a phone call, and hang up. So you see we're getting an event saying that there was events. I don't know if we can really scroll up on this. Let's try it. Control C. Okay, cool, we can. Okay, so when I made a phone call there, what I just did is I dialed 600, which is the echo test and stuff. And the first thing that we got was an event new channel. The privilege for that was a call or all. Remember, when you're defining the Asterisk Manager interface, you can say what each account is allowed access to. So in order to see this, you need to have access to call and all. There's the channel name, the channel state, this channel state description. So the channel was down when it first started. The caller ID name and number, caller ID number of Matt, account code, extension, context, and the unique ID for that call. So then, straight after that, we started getting these varset events. And this is what I was just talking about. So now you can start seeing what the variables are that are being presented to the dial plan. For example, now you're getting SIP URI, which has got the actual SIP URI of that call. So if I wanted to send a call out to this particular person, which is me, I'd be using that SIP URI there. So you can see basically it's going to keep throwing events at you, and it's up to you to look at the word event and what follows it and see if you want to pass it. Now, how much time have I got left? I haven't got any time left. What I'm going to quickly do is show you, what do we got here? So what I've got here is a piece of software that's basically looking for various events and taking the text and stuff, applying them to variables, connecting to the Asterisk Manager. This one's doing it properly. So this one is actually it's connecting to the Asterisk Manager. It's dealing with the fact sometimes if you've got a long response to say you say show me all the channels in Asterisk, right? If that takes more than one packet's worth of data, it will split that response across multiple packets. So you need to keep, if you're looking for long ones, you need to keep reading and keep adding to a packet into a string until you start to see this double carriage return. So what this does here is it connects, it runs constantly. If the socket disconnects, it reconnects to the Asterisk Manager. It passes for the events. and it calls off when it gets particular events. It awesome, my computer's running slow. So for example here we've got bridged channels. So if we get bridged channels and stuff, then what it's going to do is it's going to run a function that can do, I'll show you the function, that will insert into a MySQL database when it calls up and stuff. So what I've got basically with this code, now I can give you a copy of this at the end of this. If a new channel starts up, it will insert into the database in MySQL in the calls table saying that there's a new channel, and then you can have a front-end website or whatever that can do screen popping or something like that. So you can poll the database, and when you see results coming into the database, you can pop screen records, you can show what kind of calls are going on at the same time. So you can do kind of like a flash operator panel type thing. We've got things for like an agent connected event, and that will insert into agent call status. So this has got two different kinds of backends. You can have a file backend or a MySQL backend, and it will change the status of an agent so that you can view. It's basically this piece of software is from a CRM package that's integrated directly with Asterisk, and it will allow you to basically 100% manage agents and calls from a PHP website. And it's also got a built-in soft phone into the website and stuff. So 100% of everything that happens with it, including call transfers and all that kind of stuff, is done through the Asterisk Manager rather than through the soft phone. Because the soft phone is basically just got hang up and call and DTMF. So everything else, all call transfers, call parking, putting people in conference rooms, all that kind of stuff has to happen through the Asterisk Manager by transferring channels into a room, things like that. So I've gone over already by 5 minutes. Hey? Yeah, sure. You guys, I mean, the software is open source that I've written. It's Smooth Operator CRM, so you can download it off Google Code. And if you want Smooth Operator CRM, and if you want just the code for the backend popper and MySQL populator, you can just grab it off me at the end as well. I mean, so questions. Has anyone got any questions on the Asterisk Manager or anything like that? Yep. Okay, yeah. Okay, and that's kind of that question was generated around the Asterisk 1.0, Asterisk 1.2 time. There was a piece of software called AST Proxy written by Dave. I can't even remember now. Anyway, so originally, if you had a few people connecting to the Asterisk Manager all at the same time, it would fall over and quite often take Asterisk with it. That's not the case anymore. I've had hundreds of connections coming through the Asterisk Manager and it's fine. The only thing is that you want to consider, do you really want to have web pages or people directly connecting to the Asterisk Manager? If they can directly connect to the Asterisk Manager, then they can probably cause it to do things you don't want to do. They could flood it with data, for example. So what I tend to do, and I know you're not supposed to do it, is I effectively use the MySQL database as middleware. So you put data into the MySQL database, and then I've got another piece of software that's reading from the MySQL database and actually doing things. And it can stack up things that it wants to do and things like that. And that way you've got one connection to the manager and a whole lot of connections to the MySQL database. MySQL tends to deal with lots of connections better than, I mean, you just don't want someone to take down your phone system by sending a whole lot of random data, you know. Any other questions?
Are there some, what's other class libraries that
Yeah, there are. There's pretty much libraries for every type of language that you'd want to use, including PHP. There's, you know, I don't know if you've seen the PHP AGI library. That was originally designed for creating AGI packages in PHP, but there's also a manager interface for that. I've just never used it. I know that it's there and it works, and it appears to have it's like a class-based library, you know, so all object-oriented and all that kind of stuff as well. So yeah, that is a possibility, but it's open source, so you can update it. But yeah, I tend to just roll my own. Like all the things that I put together, I wrote my speech last night at 7:30. I don't know if you noticed that Asterisk was compiled around the same time. And all that code, I chucked it together. And it takes like, once you get the hang of it and the feel for it, it only takes 10 minutes to put something together. Something that's doing a whole lot of parsing of particular events and stuff, like that, the one that I showed you in Xcode, that's really generalized, so it's able to do a whole lot of different kind of things. So that takes a bit longer to put together. But even then, it's not too bad. So, yeah. Those two files, popper.php and manager.events.php that I showed you in Xcode, they are totally standalone. So you don't need to have the whole CRM around them. They'll just sit and they run from the command line, and will populate a MySQL database with events and things like that. So. They will respond to you with an error. If you send something that doesn't make sense, it will respond to you with an event like, you know. It depends what you've got. So like in the last one, I remember well, you might not have seen, but in the Xcode one, I've got while not FEOF. So if it crashes, then it's going to it'll fall out of the loop down to the bottom, and then I can print things to the PHP page and stuff. So you can have like if you have an error connecting, or if the authentication failed, you can pass that and print out an error to the screen. Sure. So you do fopen /var/log/myfail log and fput or fwrite or whatever, or file put contents or whatever to write to one of those files. Yeah. Any other questions? Okay. Well, thanks for coming. And if you want any of the source code or anything, just come and give me a yell, and give me your email address or something. I can send it to you. Or if you've got a USB key, I can give you a copy of it while you're here. So cool. Thanks for coming. Yeah.